Let's do it.
Evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast on a Monday night. That means it's time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how's it going?
I can't complain too much. How you doing on your side?
Doing all right. Doing all right. I'm hanging in there. Pushing forward. Life throws you snowballs, but then the snowballs are filled with small little rocks, and you just have to be ready for it.
Huh.
Life is
Yeah.
like that jerk older brother. That you just wish would leave you alone, but he gains too much pleasure in tormenting you. That's
Yeah.
what I like in life to be sometimes.
So you're feeling like you're the little brother being pelted by rock-filled snowballs.
Yeah, sometimes, right? I think that's a pretty good metaphor. Maybe that's an episode of Calamity Jane.
Oh man. Does she have an older brother or
Does
something? Is
she?
that
I
what
don't know.
I think that's something.
I've imagined a Calamity to be a bit of a loner myself. So
Yeah, but who knows? There's a rumor that's been started here on the internet, and we'll see how that impacts
yeah,
a future potential episode.
yeah, we'll see. But what do we got in store? I think there was a bit of a hint on the Facebook page tonight. If anybody watched that, I think we're going to be looking at a little bit of some emotions of calamity and discussing that and seeing where we're going to go with that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking at our animatic. We have our animatic set up separate in three acts.
Mm-hmm.
So in Act One, there's actually some emotion that she does with Leon when he gets knocked out.
Right.
And
Right.
last week I was talking about how I wanted to kind of explore her characterization about with stuff and how she
Mm-hmm.
emotes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe when you're doing sometimes when you're doing something creative, you know how you step away from it and then you come back to it and it looks good, and then there's something you want to fix.
Yeah. Sure.
I think in this case I was kind of feeling the same way, but sometimes you second guess yourself and then you overcorrect, or you just maybe you should just leave it alone. And now I'm in the mindset of I should just leave it alone.
You should
But
just leave it alone. Well,
yeah, but whatever.
why don't you stop teasing us and let's see some visuals so we can get some context here.
Okay, so what we're gonna do first is we're gonna watch about a minute of our animatic,
Okay.
and then we'll go into the actually producing a little bit of animation tonight. So let me
Okay.
do share screen, sharing stuff. Um, all right, so here we are. I believe the note is it starts around 1:45, so I'll go there. All right, so at this section, Leon has saved the day, but perhaps for the last time?
Mm.
Question mark.
Uh-oh.
The Warhog is now slain, and
Mm-hmm.
Calamity has reacted to this. And now here we go. And I think I have my volume up, everything. So let me know if you can't hear.
Did you make sure to share audio when you shared your screen? That's a idiosyncratic nature of Zoom. Because
Oh,
I'm not hearing anything. When you go to share your window, you have to make sure you hit that check mark that says share computer audio.
all right. So I'm going to do stop share.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. I go share screen. I click on that.
Pick your window, and then there
Okay.
should
Share
be a
computer sound.
yeah. There you
Gotcha.
go. And then that'll
Thank you.
that'll get you. Yep.
Okay. Cool. Let me know if you can hear this now.
Yep. I can hear it.
Yeah. Great. All right. Here we go. Let's watch the first little bit of this.
Okay. I'm ready.
Leon!
It's all right, Calamity. I don't have much time left.
Don't say that!
Listen, I want you to take my hat, my duster, and my guns. They're yours now.
Do I have to? Tan isn't really a good color on me.
They've been passed down from mentor to student at least twice. So yes, you have to.
Okay.
It's not long now. make make me one more promise.
Anything.
Promise me. Promise me you won't ever wear a Hawaiian shirt.
Ew! Why would I do that?
Promise
Okay.
me.
And that's where we're at. So
Right.
that's so I don't. So for me, when I'm working on stuff, like sometimes when I'm watching animatic. There's certain scenes that I want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Animation wise, they're like, oh, that's the scene I want.
Right.
So that particular scene is my favorite scene in the entire episode. Is where the ew scene.
Ew, yeah. Okay. All
I
right.
love that scene, and so I wanted to save it for last, but I think for tonight's episode, I'm actually going to animate that. I mean, I'm
Okay.
going to have my cake first instead of having the dinner and trying to get through other scenes. Only because I want to explore emoting with Calamity Jane, and I think just watching this animatic, I think I'm okay, and I was second guessing stuff last week.
So, as just a quick recap, last week you were talking about potentially playing with, because obviously Calamity's eyes are inverted, where she's got mostly black eyes with white pupils, as opposed to the other way around. And obviously that works for the character. And you were playing around with the idea of adding almost a secondary emotion to her white pupils. And what you're feeling right now, though, is based on reviewing this animatic that you don't need to be tweaking around with that stuff.
Yeah, it's not really even the pupils; it's actually the eyes themselves, the black
Oh, yeah,
eyes.
okay.
I'm going to play with the shape of that, and I think that might be overkill.
Okay.
So for tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start laying the groundwork of putting the poses in place, which are really. So this is scenes 57 as I've labeled here. I'm using Adobe Animate to kind of to lay out my animatic, and I'll do some animation in Adobe Animate as well. So here's a great situation where I can. So this is scene 57. There's essentially only two key poses here. There's her standard static pose where she's doing most of her talking, and then there's her ooh pose.
Her ooh pose, right?
Her ooh pose. So I'm gonna what this is what I'm setting up here as well is if as we watch the animatic, you saw that this shot I've used a few times in other parts of the animatic, and that's on purpose because we are just pretty much a two-man crew,
right?
And so I need to figure out places where I want to convey the story and tell it, and then recycle as much as I can, and make this episode as efficient as I can.
Sure.
And saving my time. Trying not to draw the same stuff over and over again, and then hopefully I have enough, energy to do some of the more fancy scenes that go by pretty quick, such as meeting with Mitchell, which will require a little more attention. So,
in this case, though, you would still animate her mouth, but her body pose would be pretty still.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you're anticipating exactly where I was going to go. I'm gonna actually set up her body pose first, which is just which is pretty much equivalent to like a held cell or a held drawing. If you notice, even when we get to the second pose, there's very little change. I might do some subtle changes once I set it up.
Right.
Essentially, the drawing is going to be the same drawing. So I also have Calamity Jane here as my model on the right side here, so I can kind of this model here. This drawing is pretty loose when I did it, but I will use our official Calamity Jane model to sort of try to shape it correctly. But yeah, so I'm just going to go into town and start setting up some stuff here.
Excellent.
We hang out.
And as now, here's a larger question. So, with this particular pose, will obviously work for the scene in this close-up shot. Do you feel like that this is a pose you'll be able to repurpose elsewhere for other close-ups for Calamity?
Yes. So, part of the reason why I designed Calamity Jane as being flat colors and shapes is we can do scalability with it pretty easily and not lose much.
I see.
So I could easily use this pose for close-ups, and I don't lose any quality, or again for smaller stuff. And
right.
It's the same. She's always on model. I don't have to worry about actually drawing the actual lines, the outlines of stuff, and that's on purpose again for us. So I can focus attention on other stuff that needs to be done for the animation. So it was a conscious decision, art direction wise, to go flat shapes.
Right. Now, when with her eyes, you were talking about deforming the eyes slightly as a secondary emo, and obviously, I do love her ooh face that you're going to be getting towards in a little bit. I think that's great. But were some of the other places that you were thinking about taking her? Were there like, representing happiness and anger and just because in the Ewww face she has eyelids that come in slightly, right,
Yeah.
which do a lot of the work. But in another instance, like you were kind of at a high level thinking that, oh, if I change the shape to more of a flat on the top, it would almost serve as almost like eyebrows in a sense,
hmm
right?
Um, let's look at so again, this episode, like tonight's episode, normally we like to be helter skelter with stuff, but I actually tried to
Yeah.
think about what we're going to be talking about tonight. And so again, you bring up a good point about emoting.
Right,
So
and
the
here's our emote sheet, which we've seen before.
Yeah, so
Right.
this it's our mouth chart, but also
Yep.
it's pretty much secondarily being her happy emoting as
Mm-hmm.
well. She's pretty happy in the shot. And you notice I haven't done her sad stuff, but I need to start work on her sad pose too. But
Mm-hmm.
we do get a sense of her eye blinks and stuff here,
Mm-hmm.
how I'm going to handle that. But see, we could easily make this like her thinking mischievous thoughts.
Right. 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 Right.
Never. I don't think there's any episode where you've written where she has that emotion in her vocabulary as of just yet.
I mean, I can't. I imagine that Calamity could be mischievous given the right circumstances, but I don't think that that's her natural state of being. No.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but you can see here, like she could be using this as a squint. I could actually use the same assets and do
Yeah.
assets.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, here's another one. She could be thinking or contemplating what her next move is. So we do have sort of that kind of built. We've already done some exploration just by function of making that here.
Mm-hmm.
Even here, let me show you.
You have some good mouth positions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll play this through once. So yeah, that's her talking. Blink. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's really, really nice.
So we'll we will get to that. It's already kind of it's already being kind of worked on, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Just by default, just because of
And will you be able to take those the mouth position and blinks and apply that here, or is that more of a reference sheet?
that. So this is I'm sorry, I keep going back to
Oh
Leon.
no, that's fine.
This is what I would consider her standard 3/4 pose,
Right.
or even this pose here.
Okay.
You can see my mouse, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this pose here is your standard 3/4 pose. We're going to be using that a lot in the episode. This particular shot, if I want to treat this as what I would call not exactly a Cadillac scene, but a scene where I'm actually going to be drawing something new.
Mm-hmm.
See, she's more looking down.
Yeah, yeah.
I could try to cheat this and do the same with her head here, and I'm going to probably break her rig here a little bit, but who cares? I could have her doing that, or let's flip it. Let's see here. Could flip it this way, and we could actually get away with that as a cheat, sort of. But I don't actually like this drawing that I set up.
Yeah.
So I don't mind actually doing the drawing to get. It is pretty subtle, but it's subtle enough for me to want to actually draw it. In this case, and for tonight's fun.
It's interesting that you bring this up because I remember interviews with Matt Groening when he was working on The Simpsons and how he just hated doing anything but the 3/4 profile. And if you look at The Simpsons, almost every single shot that a character is in, they're always in 3/4 profile, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame him if he wants to be efficient. 3/4 is already done. Why sit down and try to think about it again like what I'm doing?
Yeah.
He's much more wiser than I am.
Well, it's interesting that you get used to it and you don't even think about it because when you watch The Simpsons or South Park is another one where they use a few key poses and perspectives for the characters. When they on the rare occasion where they do a different pose, it really really stands out. But in a good way, though, right? Because it looks different. I mean, some of my favorite shots on South Park, for instance, are Eric Cartman laying in bed, and you've got this long, foreshortened shot looking up at his torso, and his belly is so fat that you can barely see his face, from behind the belly. and it's like the shirt's ridden up, of course, a little bit. And you've got the belly and the belly button and all that stuff, and it's awesome. Those are like those are the fancy. You just look at those and you just laugh because they're so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but they do stand out because there's such a departure from what you're used to watching. You're conditioned to kind of
Right.
watch, yeah, watch the episode a certain way, and that's just, and it's again for TV, it makes a lot of sense to want to be that efficient and just, again, why reinvent the wheel a few more times when
Mm-hmm.
you have a budget or a deadline and you need to get some stuff done. But for us, our budget is kind of, I mean, our budget is really just time.
Our budget is time. Yeah. Yeah.
And, I know we've been at this for a while, but I like it's sort of like you know, our passion, project. And so I don't mind putting extra time into it just to get it to feel right. Or
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I
so.
um I know exactly what you mean.
So you see here, I actually recycled already a drawing of the eye from the
Yeah.
3/4 pose, and I'm just mashing it in right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I might tweak it again later, but it's already like I'm not trying to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm trying to do is lay in her pose more finished than before.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I will. So right now, the one thing I'm fighting with, and this is a mistake I did at boarding it, was her actual color is just the same color as the backdrop. So I keep
Yeah. 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 You should maybe you should take a second and just change that to a darker blue.
I don't think I can. I think this all kind of.
Oh, this is all it's all one layer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was a doofus.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. If we
I'm-
could predict every aspect of the future, then
Yeah,
oof.
but I want to.
Yeah, I
And
know. Don't we all?
uh,
um, but
but it's coming together here.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, it is, and it's interesting too. Like when you watch, going back to, you get accustomed to particular perspectives in cartoons. Any cartoon really, you watch it and you realize how economic most TV animators are in terms
Yeah,
of reusing as many assets as possible. And there's the classic and old timey cartoons where you just have a single cell that they scroll over and over again, and now
yeah,
you've, instead of a single space of wall with a single door, you've got an entire hallway filled with doors, right?
yeah,
And it's interesting. Like the cheats have gotten a lot better. Obviously you rarely see that in The Simpsons unless they're actually making a joke about that.
yeah.
Um, but it's really interesting to watch how animators trick you and make you think that they're doing a lot more work than they actually are doing.
Yes, it's all about trickery. Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
always, indeed. That
That's
is, I
my.
think, yeah.
I haven't done an evil villain voice in a while. I'm out of practice, but I'll get back into it.
Okay, excellent, excellent. I'll write a character who, like, they have a bad evil villain voice, and then no one takes them seriously as a villain just because they don't have the voice correct,
Oh,
right?
that's actually pretty good. I mean, did you just make him a villain for us?
maybe
Yeah,
maybe I did. I don't know.
yeah.
It would be funny though that, like, this guy comes into town and is like attempting to rob a bank, but he sounds really nasally and unserious, right? And the teller at Drago Gorge Bank just laughs at him, and it's
And
like,
so, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Actually, you could actually kind of run with that too, with how our Mitchell is and how he always wants laughs, and this guy's getting laughs. It almost becomes a thing where Mitchell sort of becomes the bad guy just because he wants to get more laughs than the villain who was accidentally getting laughs. I
yeah.
don't know.
What if we do turn
Yeah,
into? I mean, this has actually got my wheels turning a little bit. Like what if, what if this is kind of a Mitchell centric episode where Mitchell kind of inadvertently becomes the bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it maybe not robbing a bank, but maybe, like, what could he accidentally become a villain, right? Just in an attempt to get laughed, he
I mean,
becomes
what
a
you can
villain.
do with this the one up stuff. If he thinks he can get laughs robbing a bank, look what I can do. You
Yeah,
need
yeah, and
or it's actually serious, or maybe you can make Mitchell like really dangerous because he's really good at it, and
Mm,
like nobody laughs, and he's freaking out because this other guy is just awful, awful at just
right.
yeah, yeah.
But I
So like
think
it
that
was, oh
what
my gosh, it's so funny. Yeah, that's really funny because you created almost like a dual coin thing
right,
with
right. It's Two
they
Face. It's
both
our
want each
version of
other's
Two
lives.
Face.
Yeah, they both want each other's lives instead.
Yeah.
And they oh my gosh, Eric, you could run with that because we could like in season whatever you could actually have an episode where they join forces and then the world is pretty much on the brink of
I don't,
destruction.
but Mitchell, I don't imagine him ever intentionally being a bad guy, right?
Relax.
Well, I
What do you do?
mean, no, I've never really considered Mitchell someone. If he ever actually perceived himself as a bad guy, he would be to me he would be really bothered by it because his whole thing is yes he's a little narcissistic, yes he's a little egocentric, but really his passion, his one desire in life is to make the world laugh, right?
Yeah,
And his anger at whoever this character could be isn't so much, it's a comes from a position of envy, right? This villain has what Mitchell wants, and any evil or any sort of wrongdoing that occurs as a result of Mitchell's envy is not something that's intentional. And in fact, it's the point at which he realizes that he's crossed the line is where you have the opportunity for the climax of the episode, right?
mm,
You have the chance for the that opportunity for redemption. Almost like Michael Scott, right? Like the office in America works for Americans because Michael is as bad as you want him to be, but at the end of the day, he realizes that he made a mistake and then wants to try to grow because of it, right?
mm,
And
mhm.
tying it back into The Simpsons, the writers of The Simpsons do the same thing with Homer. He can be as bad as they want him to be as long as at the end of the show he learns a bit of a lesson, right?
Yeah,
And then like Family Guy, just to keep going on this line of thought a little bit,
mhm.
they poke fun at that in an episode where Peter loses, like he gets liposuction and he gets really like fit, and then his attractiveness goes to his head, and of course he becomes worse than he usually is. And
Mhm.
then the finale of the episode is he falls in a vat of fat and eats it
Oh my
all,
god.
and then turns back into his own self. And then standing around the bed, everybody goes, "Man, well, I'm certainly glad that we learned a lesson today. Peter, did you learn anything?" And he goes, "Nope." And it goes to credits.
I couldn't get into Family Guy as much as I mean I know it's got a following, a lot of people love it. I just never could get into it.
It
So I
was,
missed out on a
yeah.
lot of humor. So I'm glad you're well versed in it. Um,
Well, I mean, I'm not well versed in it now. I think I stopped watching it after the first season back, right when Cartoon Network I think picked it up.
okay.
Um, and they were Comedy Central. I don't remember, and they gave it like a new episode, new season, and I watched that season, and then I kind of lost interest shortly after that. So I've only watched about 4 or 5 seasons of it, and it's been on for a long time now.
Okay.
But I do remember that episode, and interestingly, they claim it was just bad writing. They wrote themselves into a corner. They didn't have enough minutes to really properly bring the episode to a resolution, and so they just had Peter do that, and it made the show way funnier as a result.
Yeah, that works. I mean, happy accidents are great.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so let's see here.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of what I would imagine the episode to be, and I think that Calamity's part in it is one of total reaction, right? So as Mitchell and this character keep kind of one-upping each other, the villain trying to be a more successful villain and making people laugh, and Mitchell wanting to be a better, more successful comedian and end up being a villain incidentally, right?
Mhm.
Calamity's the one who has to come in and sort of break the cycle because they're in, an infinite loop of stupidity, basically. And she would be the one to help Mitchell realize that he's crossed a line that he didn't intend to cross.
Yeah, and that's where their friendship comes in.
And that's where that's where their friendship comes in. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I
And
do
again,
believe, like, for all of their weirdness and their interactions, I think Mitchell and Calamity become friends, because in their own ways they're both loners, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a kindred spirit aspect to that relationship as a result.
Yeah. I also it's funny because in a strange way, and this episode kind of it to me this idea that we're talking about exemplifies how a Calamity's kind of the adult in the room a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so she's kind of going back to your snowball with rocks. You know, she's the older sister in this situation. Although she doesn't ever be, she's more nurturing with Mitchell, right? I mean,
Right. She's the older sister to the older brother, right? So there's the audience, or there's Mitchell, and and then there's the older brother that is life, and Calamity's the one that the younger brother. Wow, this is a really strained metaphor. It's not. I lost the thread on that one, but suffice it to say, yeah, I think Dry Gulp Gorge and all of its inhabitants have a tendency to force Calamity into this role of being an adult, being the adult in the room, right? And I think that really plays into this whole aspect of her taking on the mantle of a hero before she was ready, right? Yeah. And I think that it's one of the things that you always hear is you start a story at the moment where the protagonist's life has changed, right? If you start it too soon, then the audience wonders, why am I watching this? If you start it too late, then the audience doesn't understand why they're watching it.
Yeah.
And
you want to see growth, and you want to see a process.
Absolutely. And
as the audience, you want to go through watch the struggle, and you sort of participate in it by watching.
Right. And so the pivotal point in Calamity's life is twofold. Leon dying in the first act, and then her finding Dry Gulp Gorge in the second act, right? So in the first act, she's suddenly on her own, and in the second act, not only is she on her own, but now she's thrust into this role of being a responsible hero, and she rises to the challenge because that is who Calamity is, right? And I think that it makes it this perfect starting point for the character and the stories that we want to tell about her. Because, Calamity and she were together before we pick up the show. They had been drifting through the deserts for a while. At least for me, I imagine a couple of years, whatever a year is in Dry Gulp Gorge world, in their world. Mm-hmm. But that's far less interesting than her now having to carry the mantle on her own.
Yeah. He kind of left possibly too soon because she's still pretty young. And
yeah. But it's that opportunity, I don't want to get too dark, and we're kind of running out of time, but I'll end with this anecdote. I lost my sister in May, it was heart-wrenching. And and she had 2 kids, my niece and my nephew, and Emma, who's 11. It's amazing to me to watch how much she has matured out of necessity, right? Yeah. Because of this. And I think I bring a lot of that to Calamity, at least in my recent stories, as a result of that. I think that having to be an adult too soon and how you deal with that is something that is, in my mind at least now, a very big part of who Calamity is. Mm-hmm. And it's always been that way, because I look on the pilot episode, I look at what we're creating, and I can't imagine a better time to introduce audiences to Calamity, because this episode, while it's fun and it's hilarious, it's a pivotal moment in her life that will define who she is moving forward. The loss of her mentor, being thrust into this position of responsibility, it's, I think that it's a great entry point for the character, and I'm really glad we stumbled on it the way we did.
Yeah, me as well. So everything you said was, it'll add richness to the story of Calamity going forward. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we're at about 30 minutes here, and you're already making progress, which is cool. And we'll see Calamity come to life Already, that's so funny. I love that transition.
Yeah, it all it needs is a few extra in betweens, and I'll do that next
Yeah,
week.
yeah, some
I
in betweening.
next
Yeah,
post, next post will I'll put this on the on our schedule for next week, and I'll do the next post, and I'll just do a couple in betweens. And this scene might be pretty much done. I need to just do a couple of mouth posts. There's things to do, but yeah, it's coming along.
yeah.
So
But in any case, so if you want to learn more about Calamity Jane, as always, you can check us out on our Patreon site, which you can find by going directly to Patreon, or just type in calamityjane.rocks into your favorite internet browser, and it'll take you right there. Or you can find us on Facebook or YouTube, since you're probably watching this on YouTube right now anyway. Otherwise, we will see you at the same time next week, 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. Have a good night, everybody.
stay safe, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, good night.